And we are back. Welcome to my final Premier League team of the season. Now, we did do a team of the season for FIFA a few weeks ago. That was obviously before the end of the season. And I said during that video that I hate to do team of the anything whilst a season is still going on or a calendar year is still going on. So this is going to be my revised Premier League team of the season now that the season has finished. For those of you who did not watch that video, firstly, go watch it now. But if you chose not to, here is the team that I picked during that video. Now, obviously, the whole purpose for me doing this video is to see how many players I have potentially changed, how many new players I have brought in, and how many I have taken out for the relevant reasons. And I'll say off the bat, there have been a fair few changes. So it will be interesting for you guys to see. These are obviously just my opinions. As always, you will be able to let me know down in the comments your thoughts on all of the changes that I have made to this team and potentially any omissions that I have made, either from my nominations or from the final team itself. I am going to do nominations for each position as well. But a final reminder that before we get into this, to drop a like on this video if you do enjoy it and subscribe to the channel. We still have a whole host of football content coming up for you over the next few weeks and months before we go again for the Premier League in August. Let's get straight into it. Now, we will start with the goalkeepers, where I've only picked 5 nominations for the goalkeepers. I think these are the only 5 goalkeepers that really deserve a place in the Premier League team of the season for their various different reasons. And I'm going to choose, this time, instead of Nick Pope, I'm going to go for David De Gea.
What?
He won the Golden Glove. Like, what do you expect me to do if you get the Golden Glove? Surely you're the best Premier League goalkeeper of the season, right?
Now you have become the very thing you swore to destroy.
I am obviously joking. I think my agenda against De Gea has got so big now that even if I genuinely thought he deserved to win Premier League goalkeeper of the season, I still probably wouldn't pick him out of pure spite and arrogance. But I can't put in a goalkeeper that made the most mistakes that led to goals in the Premier League this season of the Premier League top goals keeper. I don't care if he did win the Golden Glove. For me, the Premier League goalkeeper of the season is actually David Raya, who has really impressed me this season. It looks like he's going to get a move away from Brentford. I'm hoping it's to Manchester United to replace David De Gea. He made the most saves of any Premier League goalkeeper this season. He was in the top 5, 4 clean sheets. He was just absolutely phenomenal. He's fantastic with the ball at his feet as well. Has been a major part in why Brentford have been so successful this season. He got the most fantasy football points, if that matters to some people's opinions as well. So for me, the goalkeeper of the season is David Raya. Let's move on to the defence. Here is the defensive options I have gone for. And if you haven't noticed already, you will notice now that we have actually gone for a 3 at the back formation. That is because I just don't think there have been 4 defenders that have done better than the other midfielder and attacker options that are available. I was very close to picking a 4th defender, and I will explain who I would have gone for shortly. But let's start off with the most obvious one, and that is, of course, Kieran Trippier. He goes straight in as the first defender. There's no real debate about that, I don't think. Easily the best performing defender in the Premier League this season. Next to him, I will go with another player that I went for in the previous video, and that is William Saliba. And I think no one epitomizes Arsenal's demise more than William Saliba this season. I will touch on another player shortly about that as well. But ever since Saliba was taken out of the side due to his injury, it's just all gone wrong for Arsenal. And the fact that they ended the season conceding more goals in the games that Saliba missed rather than the games that he played really shows how important William Saliba was to that Arsenal side, and ultimately was a key reason as to why they didn't win the Premier League. The final spot is a lot more up for debate because I think all of these contenders have a relatively good shout of earning that spot. And a lot of people I saw in other team of the seasons went for Ruben Diaz as one of their defenders. But I've decided not to include Ruben Diaz even in my nominations, just because I don't think he played enough games to warrant being in the team of the season. And not only that, it wasn't his return necessarily that signalled Manchester City's success in that run till the end of the season. It was actually the man that I'm going to go for in that final spot. And it's John Stones, because when Ruben Diaz picked up his injury, when Laporte picked up his injury, when Ake picked up his injury, when Cancelo left, all this, that and the other, Manchester City's defence was a very much chop and change, trying to figure out the right players for the right positions. And John Stones was the ever-present, ever-consistent player into the Manchester City defence. And then once Ruben Diaz came back into the side, that was when Pep Guardiola then changed that shape to this sort of alternate between a 3-back and a 4-back, where John Stones would play right centre-back and then move into right-holding midfield. And he was the integral part of Manchester City's run to the title at the end of the season. And there is no doubt in my mind that John Stones thoroughly deserves to be in the Premier League team of the season. If you watched my previous video, you know I would have put Nathan Ake in there. But like I say, this is how opinions change over the course of the last few weeks. And I think with Ake picking up his injury right when I said that, and John Stones continuing to perform at the highest level, I just think overall John Stones edges out all of these other nominees down at the bottom. If I was going to go for a fourth defender, I was going to go for this guy, Pervis Estupiñán, as a left-back who has been incredibly consistent. I feel like Brighton did deserve some sort of recognition in this team for their achievements this season, but when I put the rest of the players in the team, I just didn't feel like Estupiñán had done enough to outdo any of the players that will fill these remaining positions. So, honourable mention to Estupiñán and a few others down here as well who all had fantastic seasons. But for me, that is my back line. That brings us on to the midfielders then. And once again, we have a whole host of nominations. This is purely going to be what I consider my holding and box-to-box midfielders. We'll then have the right mid and left mid in that formation sort of to cover all of the attack-minded midfielders and left wingers and right wingers. And then, of course, we have 2 forwards up front. So this is purely my box-to-box and holding midfielders. And once again, we do have a whole host of nominees that I do feel deserve some recognition. However, for me, this 3 is in no doubt whatsoever. Firstly, I'm going to go for Kevin De Bruyne. I don't actually know why I didn't pick him earlier on in the season. I must have had my reasons, but I can't actually remember them because how I've not picked De Bruyne in that first squad is beyond even myself. But Kevin De Bruyne obviously goes in as my top midfielder for this season. Once again, the top assister, a major part in Manchester City winning the title this season. He is, in my opinion, the best player in world football right now. I know other people have their opinions regarding Haaland and Mbappe and all this, that and the other. But for me, Kevin De Bruyne is the best footballer in the world, and he has proved that once again this season. He gets in as my first midfielder. The other 2, I just couldn't separate them, so I'm just going to put them both in. And once again, massive effort and congratulations to all the others that have made this. They've had fantastic seasons. The likes of Bruno Guimaraes, Douglas Luiz, Alexis McAllister, Palinha, Declan Rice. They'd probably be my top ones. I chucked in Ramsey and Billing just because I thought their achievements for their clubs this season were epitomised by their performances overall. But for me, the only 2 people I can put in these 2 other midfield positions are Rodri, if it lets me take him, Rodri and Casemiro. And look, I was always going to put Casemiro in this team. You know that. I think he was the signing of the season in terms of impact. Manchester United would not have even got close to Champions League football without Casemiro. And Rodri has been absolutely immense for Manchester City. The most consistent player, I would say, in Manchester City's team. I don't think he had a single bad performance all season in the Premier League. He has been absolutely immense. And like I say, I just can't separate Rodri and Casemiro. So I've just put them both in alongside Kevin De Bruyne, and commiserations to all the other midfielders that just narrowly missed out. Next up then, we have what I call the second row, so the right wingers, left wingers, cams, that sort of style of player, the more attack-minded midfielders. So that's why I've gone for these nominations down here. And yes, I have included Bruno Fernandes because he had the most chances created in the Premier League this season. So if you do think he had a bad season, then have a look at Manchester United's forwards rather than having a look at Bruno Fernandes because he did his job to the best of his abilities. He will not be making the team though, don't get me wrong. There is one obvious choice straight away and that is Martin Odegaard. So he will be going straight into the team immediately. He's probably going to get Arsenal's player of the season. He's definitely going to get Arsenal's young player of the season. And I think that at one point in the season, when they started doing the first batch of awards, Odegaard actually got player of the season over Haaland in one of the Sport Writers awards or something. So he's definitely going in. The other one, I am going to go for Bukayo Saka, but he was the one that was originally going to miss out for Estupiñán when I first put this team together. But I just couldn't quite justify it because we spoke about it earlier with William Saliba about how when he dropped out of the side, Arsenal's performances dropped. And I said about how that sort of solidified and epitomised Arsenal's demise. But actually, I don't think anyone epitomised it more than Bukayo Saka, because in this run of games where Arsenal have essentially thrown the Premier League title away, Bukayo Saka hasn't really been producing anything at all. I think he's got a couple of assists and 1 goal. Whereas in that same time, Martin Odegaard has put in about 5 or 6 goals and 5 or 6 assists. His performance levels have been consistent all throughout the season, whereas Bukayo Saka just dropped off at the most crucial moment. And I'll say the same for Martinelli. I thought Martinelli had another fantastic season. I could have easily picked all 3 of Arsenal's second row, but for me, Saka edges it over Martinelli, but it's just unfortunate for him that he couldn't maintain that level of performance all the way through to the end of the season, because if he had done, Arsenal might have been able to get all the way over the line. And of course, special mentions to the 2 Brighton lads as well. Once again, they just narrowly miss out as well. On to the forwards finally then. And I don't really think there's too much to say about the 2 forwards. I have included Rashford in the forward line. I should have stressed that. For me, a player that has played at striker on multiple occasions this season should not have been included in the second row options. I may have potentially included Rashford over Saka if I was going to do that, but no, for me, Rashford is an out-and-out forward, as is Mohamed Salah, because he plays right-wing striker. Neither of them are going to make the team, because obviously we are going to go for Erling Haaland and Harry Kane. I can't really put anyone else in over those 2. 36 goals for Haaland, a Premier League record. 30 goals for Harry Kane, would have won the Golden Boot in any Premier League season, other than, I think, 3, which would have been when Salah got 33. When obviously Haaland got 36 this season, and when Ronaldo got 33, and I think a couple of others earlier on with Alan Shearer. But 30 goals for Harry Kane is a phenomenal season, plus the assists as well. Without him, Tottenham wouldn't be anywhere near even 8th. So he has to be in there, in my opinion. And, you know, what else can you say about Erling Haaland? I have to hold my hands up and say I didn't think he'd do this well, purely because I thought he'd pick up an injury at some point, but he didn't. He played all season, 36 goals and 9 assists. An incredible season for Erling Haaland. And obviously, he goes in as my main forward alongside Harry Kane. So that is the team. We still have to pick a manager. And there are so many different managers that I feel deserve this award. And we'll sort of work our way down the table. You've got you've got Pep Guardiola, because they're on the verge of winning a treble. And although this is a Premier League only team of the season, Guardiola does deserve some recognition. Not enough for me, though. Mikel Arteta getting Arsenal to 2nd. Eddie Howe getting Newcastle into the Champions League. Erik ten Hag getting Manchester United into the Champions League. Roberto De Zerbi with all his achievements at Brighton. Thomas Frank with all his achievements at Brentford. Unai Emery taking Villa from essentially a relegation fight to a European place. And then further down the table, I would say Gary O'Neill had done an absolutely incredible job at Bournemouth. And to be honest, I could give absolutely any one of those managers the manager of the season, because they all deserve it within their own rights. But for me, I think the biggest achievement of any manager this season has got to be Eddie Howe for taking Newcastle way ahead of their original schedule and getting them into the Champions League at the first time of asking, which is an incredible achievement for a manager that a lot of clubs weren't willing to take a risk on after he left Bournemouth. And for him to just go in at Newcastle, save their season last season, and then go from strength to strength over the course of this season, handling the injuries to St. Maximan and Isak, bringing in players that weren't too expensive but massively improved their squad, bringing in Nick Pope and the defensive record that they've had this season with Botman and Shah and Trippier and Byrne and other players that nearly made it into the defence. Everything Eddie Howe has done at Newcastle deserves recognition, and for me, he just edges out all of the managers to be my manager of the season. And there we are. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, this is my team of the season for the season 2022-23. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be doing this all over again next season, where hopefully we'll see a fair few more Manchester United players in there other than just Casemiro. But that remains to be seen for now. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you very soon.